Hello, I want to talk for a few minutes about Fastcall's inbound lookup with phone calls and SMS. And we go about this in a few ways, but I'm going to start here inside the widget. So you'll see we have some recent inbound calls, a few with a match. So here, so a few have a match and few don't. Um, so how does this work? So we're often asked um, where one of our subscribers will say, "Hey, Rich, the caller ID is incorrect. In this case, this wasn't Jordan calling." So just in terms of how we describe things, the caller ID for us is the phone number. So the from phone is the caller ID. The name is a lookup in Salesforce. So the caller ID is coming from Twilio. It's the from phone in the Twilio log, and then what we've received from Twilio in the API. It is certainly possible that that phone number is blocked, or in some phone applications like Skype, they're sort of using just one unique number. Um, and it's also possible in some inbound caller IDs, you may see things like restricted spelled out. So the caller ID, that from number, the caller ID, Fastcall doesn't control. It's coming from Twilio, and Twilio is getting it from the originating caller. So there's a lookup here. So in this case, an inbound call came in. We found the lookup to this record, and Fastcall matches that lookup if only one record has the inbound caller ID, and we do it almost the same way as if I took the phone number here and went into Salesforce and I searched for the phone number. Um, and we're doing something very similar when that call comes in. We're looking for a record with the matching phone number. And if we find one single record with the matching phone number, then um, we're going to create that lookup. If we find two records with the phone number, we're not. The we're going to leave it for the user to tell us which record to match. So if there were two records with Jordan, so for example, if there was a lead and a contact, if you have a duplicate in Salesforce, well, we think that part of good data hygiene is managing those duplicates. We think that you shouldn't have the same phone number in multiple records. And if you do, and the call comes in, um, the end user will have to tell us which of these records should we match in the lookup table. But if there is only one record with that phone number, we'll match it for you. If it's matched and it's not who you want it to be. So for example, Jordan is an associate here. He's actually, in this case, he actually was contacting us on case of his boss. You can come in and you choose the search icon. We're going to do two things. We're going to, once again, search Salesforce to see if we find any other records with that phone number. And if we don't, you can create a new record. And in this case, we're creating a new lead. Jordan's also a lead. We could create a new lead here. We could eliminate the lookup here. And now it's back to unknown. And I can leave it like this, and it would go back to unknown. So we can say, that caller wasn't Jordan, but we don't know who it is, so we're going to leave it unknown. Wouldn't necessarily recommend that because it is a good practice to always have a lookup, um, but you could. Or again, we can come in here, we can search. We found Jordan because it's now we removed the lookup. It says unknown. We did find Jordan. We can create a new lead. So I'll put that back to Jordan. Okay, so if you have a lookup here in the widget and it's wrong, it again, Fastcall's only going to map that lookup if we found exactly one record and only one record with the phone number, we'll match it for you. If there is multiple records with that phone number, it will be up to the end user to create a match. So if you say, hey, Fastcall, this is wrong. Now in this case, is also a lead. It's wrong. It it the lookup very well could have been created by the end user. So in this case, this happens to be a lead. If I convert it, the lookup will convert to an account. But that's a great point. So I don't know if I see if I have one here. It's lead, lead, lead. I may not have one to show. Um, but we have no way when a call comes in, I don't know, here's a reasonable example. So the call comes in, I'll do a search here. We have no way to know when this call comes in from this caller ID, and we didn't find the match, whether this phone number is a lead or a contact or an account. If this is the caller ID used for an account, every call from that company is going to have the same caller ID. And that's not terribly uncommon with phone systems. So we don't know whether that is Bob Smith calling, and that's Bob's direct line. We don't even know if that's Bob Smith's mobile phone. There's no way for us to know. So we're only going to match what we find on the Salesforce user record or what the user creates in this lookup. And if it's wrong, if it should be Starbucks, should be an account name, you change it. So if all calls from that number are coming from Starbucks as an account name, you change the lookup to Starbucks. If it is a direct dial number from the end user, you create the lookup to the end to the contact under the account. Um, we support leads, accounts, contacts, but there's no way for Fastcall to know. When the call comes in, there's no way for us to know Bob Smith is calling from his beach house and that's the phone. I don't know. How are we going to know that? Right? So this is what we're going to see here, and we're going to be able to manage that lookup here within the widget. We also manage this if we come in here. It's going to take me to the task record. And since we are looking at the widget, if I also needed to block the call, I could do that here. It's a newer feature, but I could actually block the call. And speaking of which, I could block it if this is a call coming from a number and I don't want calls from that number or I want to identify them, you can also create a lookup here. So for example, if it is a Skype caller ID, you can create a record Skype and create the lookup to Skype. So it comes in and it'll say Skype. If I actually have in my own org the ability to, I created a record called spam, not Sam. I'm finding some Sams, but I created a record called spam, and I'm able to create a lookup to the record called spam. That's right here, spam. One spam wasn't good enough. I had to call it spam. But I called a rec, so I just attached the lookup to spam. Now the other way to do that again, I could also block it. But you can, if you do have a need to just create a lookup as a holder, you do that, right? You just say, okay, I want to, every time that number calls, I want to identify it as whatever you want to call it, and you can do that. I'll remove that lookup here. Okay, so we went over to the task in Salesforce. So I'm here. So I want to show you on the task. So this inbound call, there's no lookup. So on a Salesforce task, there is a who and a what. A who is the contact or the lead. The what is any other related object. So it could be a case, could be an opportunity. In this particular task record, there's neither because we have no lookup. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to navigate to a call, and you're going to see that on the call record, which is our custom object for the call, I'm going to come over here and I'm in Lightning. I'm going to see assign related record. So we can do this same assignment either from the widget or here. So any Salesforce record, when I'm on the Fastcall call record for any inbound call, I can create that lookup here by using the assign call button, or I can do it from the widget. And a third way is I can also do it from the dashboard. And the dashboard is giving the same interface, for example, as the widget here. I can block the call here. So it's the same exact interface as the widget. The benefit of the dashboard is I can see all calls. I can filter them by group, by user. I can filter only my missed calls, inbound. In the dashboard, we see everything. In the widget, the user only sees her own calls. And then, as I said, if I am directly on a call record, as I am here, I can come over and use the assign related record button to manage the lookup. So and behind the scenes here, there is a lookup table where we're managing this lookup. So if the lookup here in the widget or on the task is not correct, it's not that the caller ID was wrong and we got it wrong. What we see when the phone call comes in is the phone number, and the phone number should be right. There's really no instance in the application where we're going to get the from phone number wrong. This is what came with the call. This is the from phone number passed to us by Twilio and originating with the originating caller. So that's what we're going to see. The lookup here is managed with what's in Salesforce and what the end user creates. So again, if I come in here and as the user, if I came in and said, that's Steve, well, there's a lookup created to Steve, right? And now there's a lookup created to Steve. And if that's wrong, it needs to be changed and be changed in your org. And just as a last side note, and I'll finish here, um, if you come in tomorrow and you say, actually that wasn't Steve, or Steve calls again tomorrow, and you say, you know what, that wasn't it. And you answer the phone. So this call comes in again tomorrow, pops up, it's Steve, and you say, hey, you know what, that's not Steve, this is Bill, right? And that would probably happen again because the caller ID phone number is associated to the company and not the contact, and you would have to change that. So if the call came in tomorrow and you change that lookup, the call tomorrow would have the correct lookup, but we're not going back and retroactively changing that lookup. So there's going to be a task with a lookup between Steve and that call, because at that time, that's what the user told us to do. So if tomorrow, next week, next month, anytime in the future, you change that lookup, as you might, and listen, Steve doesn't work anymore. Somebody new is sitting in his office. 3 years from now, it might be Nancy calling us, right? But the same phone number, we're not going to change the previous call. The previous call could have been Steve, right? So there's, again, lots of use cases where that's going to happen, and Fastcall's not going to manage that. That's going to be up to the end user, to the admin to manage. We're just managing the lookup in the back end. So we're in the lookup simply is between the identifying phone number. I'm going to remove this. The identifying phone number and the Salesforce record. There's a lookup table. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. If you have any additional questions, definitely shoot us an email, help@fastcall.com, and we will be happy to answer those questions.